I woke to the sound of a car door slamming outside. It wasn't unusual. Our neighborhood was always full of noise, but something about it made my heart race. I glanced at the clock. 2:47 a.m. Jessica wasn't in bed. I stared at the empty space beside me, the sheets cold. I reached out, touching the void, as if I could uncover an answer just by sensing the absence. Then I heard it. The sound of the front door unlocking. I moved quickly, too quickly, heart pounding. I slipped out of bed and stood in the dark hallway, watching the door creak open. Jessica stepped inside, holding her heels in one hand and her phone in the other. She didn't see me. Her hair was messy, lipstick smeared at the corner of her mouth, but it wasn't her appearance that stopped my breath. It was the way she moved, as if sneaking into someone else's home, afraid of being caught. I stepped forward. "Where were you?" I asked. She jerked her head around, panic flashing across her face for an instant, before she covered it with a slow blink. "Jesus, Alex, you scared me," she said, clutching her chest like I was the problem, like I was the one sneaking around at 3 a.m. "Where were you?" I repeated. She scoffed. "I told you, I was with Stacy." I could still hear the sound of that car door slamming, the car that wasn't hers. "You're lying." A brief silence followed, just a flicker of hesitation, before she rolled her eyes and gave a short, mocking laugh. "Oh my God, Alex, do you hear yourself? Are you really doing this now?" She brushed past me, her perfume thick in the air, but there was something else too. Something I couldn't ignore. Cologne. Not hers, not mine. Something inside me cracked wide open, and I knew right then my life was about to become a storm I wasn't ready for. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I stood there, watching her, as the realization settled in my chest like a slow-burning fire. "Whose car dropped you off?" I demanded. She froze for a fraction of a second before spinning around, exhaling dramatically. "Are you seriously still on this?" I stepped forward, my voice lower. "Whose car?" Her eyes narrowed, and in a tone that oozed casual indifference, she said, "Stacy's boyfriend gave me a ride." "Happy?" I didn't blink. I didn't look away. She was lying. I could see it in the way she gripped her phone too tightly, the way she avoided looking me in the eyes for more than a second. I could have let it go. I could have swallowed my suspicions and gone back to bed, pretending everything was fine. But then her phone vibrated. She flinched, actually flinched. I saw her thumb move, lightning fast, pressing the power button to turn the screen black before I could see the message. That was it. That was the moment I knew. I snatched the phone from her hand, too fast for her to stop me. "Alex, what the hell?" she shrieked, lunging for it, but I held it out of her reach. "Who's texting you at 3 in the morning?" My voice was eerily calm, but my hands were shaking. She grabbed my arm, nails digging in. "Give me my damn phone." I turned it on and unlocked it. "Open it." Jessica's face shifted between rage and fear, but mostly rage. "You're insane. You know that. You've completely lost your mind." She tried to snatch the phone again. I yanked it back open, but then she did something I never expected. She smiled. Not a nervous smile, not a guilty one, but a slow, dangerous, cocky smile. The kind that sent chills down my spine. And in that moment, I realized something horrifying. She wasn't afraid of being caught. She didn't care for a second. I stood there, gripping her phone so hard my fingers ached. The woman I had known for years looked me dead in the eyes, completely unbothered. She wasn't scrambling for an excuse, wasn't crying, apologizing, or begging me not to jump to conclusions. She just smirked. "No," I repeated, my voice eerily calm, though my blood was boiling under my skin. Jessica crossed her arms, tilting her head slightly. "You heard me. Number, I don't have to prove a damn thing to you, Alex." I let out a short, humorless laugh. "You don't have to prove anything?" "Nope," she said, popping the P and snatching the phone from my grip before I could react. "Because I'm not going to stand here and let you act like some psycho-controlling husband." I felt something deep inside me shift, a breaking point, a silent explosion. She wasn't even denying it. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice coming out quieter now. Jessica sighed, rolling her eyes as if I had asked her to take out the trash. "Go to bed, Alex." go to bed. I took a step forward. She didn't back away, just stared at me with that same smug look like she'd already won. Say it, I demanded. If you're not cheating, say it. Silence. The air between us grew thick, dangerous. Her jaw clenched, her nails tapping against the back of her phone. Her mask was cracking, and for the first time that night, I saw it. The truth bleeding through her perfect little act. Jessica inhaled sharply, then laughed. Not a nervous giggle, not a chuckle of relief, but a full-bodied taunting laugh. "Oh my God, Alex," she wheezed between laughs. "You're actually serious right now? You're really standing here waiting for some dramatic confession?" I said nothing. I just stared. That's when she took a slow step forward, getting uncomfortably close, looking me dead in the eyes before whispering, "Even if I was cheating, what the hell are you going to do about it?" My whole body went cold. She smiled. She thought she had me, or at least she thought she did. But she had no idea what was coming next. I didn't move. I didn't blink. Jessica stood inches away, her breath warm against my skin, her eyes gleaming with something dangerous. Power. She thought she'd won, thought I'd swallow my pride, look away, and let her get away with it. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't have possibly expected, was that I had already started pulling at the seams of her lies, slowly, deliberately. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Jessica's smirk faltered just slightly. "You think I'm stupid, Jess?" I asked, my voice quiet but sharp. She shifted, rolling her eyes, but I could see it now, the cracks forming. "What? Are you going to call the cops on me for coming home late?" I unlocked the screen, swiped open my gallery, and then turned the screen toward her. Jessica froze. The color drained from her face as she stared at the photos I'd taken earlier that night, her and him. The streetlight had been dim, but the photos were clear enough. Jessica standing by a car I didn't recognize, laughing, her hand on his chest, his hand on her waist. I had followed the whisper in my gut, driven around when she didn't answer my calls. I had seen her with him, and instead of confronting her right away, I had waited, letting her dig her own grave. Now she was staring at the proof, her betrayal captured frame by frame. She inhaled sharply, swallowed, trying to regain control. Where did you get these?" "Does it matter?" I said flatly. "Tell me his name." Jessica licked her lips, her mind racing for an escape route, but there wasn't one. Not this time. Then she did something that almost made me laugh. She shrugged. "Okay, F you. Got me. So what?" My grip on the phone tightened. "So what?" I repeated. "You're acting like this is some big scandal. People cheat, Alex. It happens. People cheat," I repeated, "but not everyone has the audacity to walk into their husband's house smelling like another man and then laugh about it." She didn't flinch. "Jesus, you're so dramatic." I stared at her, feeling something inside me snap. Not in anger, not in sadness, but in sheer absolute clarity. Jessica wasn't sorry. Jessica never thought she'd get caught. And worst of all, Jessica didn't care. I exhaled slowly, then said, "Pack your things." She blinked. "What?" I turned, walked to the front door, and opened it wide. The cold night air swept into the house like a ghost. Then, without looking back, I said, "You have 15 minutes. Get out." For the first time that night, Jessica's confidence wavered. Her smug, taunting expression twisted into something else. Confusion, panic, maybe just shock. "You're kicking me out?" she scoffed, like I had just suggested something ridiculous. "Alex, don't be stupid." I leaned against the door frame, arms crossed. "You've got 14 minutes now." Jessica let out a sharp, disbelieving laugh. "Come on, let's be real. You're not actually throwing me out in the middle of the night." She laughed, but I didn't respond. I just stared, and that's when she realized. Her eyes flicked to the door, and then back to me, as if waiting for a joke, but there was none. Her lip curled. "You're such a child," she said. I shrugged. "Call it whatever you want. Just don't call it your house anymore." The words hit her hard. Jessica stepped forward, her voice sharper now. "Alex, don't be an idiot. You're angry, I get it, but you're not thinking clearly. Where the hell am I supposed to go?" I let out a dry chuckle. "I don't know. Maybe ask the guy whose cologne you're wearing." She flinched, The first time all night she seemed guilty, but as quickly as it came, the guilt vanished, replaced by cold calculation. Jessica straightened her posture, her gaze hardening. Then she made her biggest mistake yet. She smirked. "You don't have the guts," she said softly. "You're not going to do it." I smiled. "Watch me." I stepped forward, grabbed her purse from the couch, and threw it onto the porch. Her jaw dropped. "Are you insane?" she shrieked. "Alex, this is my home too." "Not anymore," I shot back. I grabbed her coat from the rack and tossed it out the door. 13 minutes. She lost it. "You can't be serious. You can't just throw me out like some stray dog." "I can, and I am." Jessica stormed forward, shoving my chest with both hands. "You're out of your damn mind. You're going to regret this." I didn't move. I just tilted my head and watched her. Then, calmly and deliberately, I delivered the final blow. "You were never as smart as you thought you were, Jess." Her eyes widened. "Get out." For the first time ever, Jessica looked scared. She stood there, breathing hard, fists clenched at her sides. I could see the war inside her, pride battling panic, arrogance clashing with reality. For years she had been in control of me, of this house, of every situation. But not anymore. The tables had turned, and she knew it. Her voice was lower now, slower, dripping with manipulation. "Alex, let's just talk." I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. "Talk? Now you want to talk?" She took a careful step closer. "I made a mistake, okay? I screwed up, but let's not do anything crazy." I laughed, actually laughed. The audacity of this woman. "Jessica, 5 minutes ago you were laughing in my face. You weren't sorry then." I tilted my head and stared at her. "So why the hell would you be sorry now?" She hesitated, her brain scrambling for a new strategy, a way to twist the situation to her advantage. Then she found it. Her lips trembled as she forced vulnerability. "I don't want to lose you, Alex. That was the game. The tears. The regret. The 'I still love you' card." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. I knew the real Jessica was still under there. I just had to wait for her to slip. Then she did. Her phone buzzed again. Jessica's eyes darted to it too fast. My stomach clenched. Whoever it was, she was still protecting him. And that's when I realized she wasn't afraid of losing me. She was afraid of losing this house, this life, the comfort, the stability. I stepped back, nodding to the door. "I'm not going to ask again." She clenched her jaw, something dark flashing in her eyes. The softness vanished, and just like that, the mask shattered completely. Jessica snatched her phone, her face twisting with fury. "You're making a huge mistake. There she is." I smiled. "I already made one 6 years ago when I married you." She sucked in a sharp breath, like I had physically hit her. But I didn't care. I grabbed the suitcase from the closet, the one I bought for our honeymoon, and threw it at her feet. 12 minutes left. Jessica screamed in frustration, grabbed the suitcase, and stormed into the bedroom. I didn't follow. I didn't say another word. I just stood there, arms crossed, listening to the sound of her world collapsing. Jessica tore through the bedroom like a hurricane, yanking clothes from hangers and shoving them into the suitcase with such violence that the furniture trembled. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching the last act of her pathetic performance. "I hope you realize how fucking stupid you're being," she spat, shoving a pile of shirts into the bag, throwing away 6 years over a mistake. "A mistake?" I echoed, tilting my head. "Jessica, this wasn't a one-time drunken screw-up. You didn't just slip and land on some guy. You made a choice, probably a dozen times over." She whirled around, eyes blazing. "Oh, so now you're an expert on my life? Tell me, Alex, where were you these last few months, huh? Because I sure as hell didn't feel like your wife anymore." I let out a sharp laugh. There it is. The blame shift. The desperate last-minute attempt to make this my fault, right? I nodded. "I work too much. I don't take you on fancy vacations. I don't make you feel wanted. That's why you spread your legs for someone else, huh?" Jessica flinched, just for a second, before her lips curled into a sneer. "You're disgusting." "No," I said. "I'm done." She zipped the suitcase so hard the fabric nearly tore. "You think you're the first guy to ever get cheated on?" Grow up, Alex. People move on. They forgive. Hell, half the guys you know have wives who've cheated, and they're still together. I stepped forward, my voice low and even. I'm not them. Jessica's nostrils flared. She grabbed her hairbrush from the nightstand, stuffed it into a side pocket, then yanked open her jewelry box, scooping up handfuls of gold and silver. You know what? Fine. You want to act like some perfect little victim? Go ahead, but when you realize how badly you fucked up, don't bother calling me. I stood calm, unmoved, completely done. That's when something changed. Jessica's breathing slowed, her shoulders straightened, and her eyes, those calculating, manipulative eyes, narrowed just slightly. She wasn't panicking anymore. She was planning. I could see it clearly, the wheels in her head turning, recalculating her next move. She exhaled dramatically, then turned to me, softer now. Alex, don't do this. There it was. The final play. The sweet voice. The baby let's talk tone. The last desperate attempt to make me crack. I didn't. Instead, I stepped aside and gestured to the open door. Time's up. Her face twisted with rage, but she grabbed the suitcase handle and yanked it off the bed with a force that rattled the lamps. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I just watched as Jessica walked herself out of my life. Jessica stormed past me, suitcase wheels screeching against the floor. Her whole body radiated fury, but I could tell beneath all that rage, beneath all that attitude, she was scrambling for a way to win. Because that's all this had ever been to her. A game. She reached the front door, then froze just before stepping outside. Her back straightened. I knew that look. Her sharp, calculating pause. Jessica wasn't leaving just yet. She turned slowly, eyes locked onto mine, her lips curling into a smirk. You know, she said, you're not as innocent as you think you are. I didn't react. I didn't even blink. What's that supposed to mean? She stepped closer, rolling the suitcase behind her, voice soft, but dripping with venom. You really think I was the only one in this marriage keeping secrets? I clenched my jaw. Don't waste your last words here on some pathetic mind game, Jessica. She laughed, a slow, taunting sound that made my blood boil. Oh, Alex, sweet, naive Alex. You really think you were the only one watching? Something cold curled in my stomach. She knew something, or at least she wanted me to think she did. You want to spell it out, or are we just throwing cryptic threats now? I asked, keeping my voice calm. Jessica shrugged, leaning against the doorframe. Maybe I don't need to spell it out. Maybe I'll just let people find out on their own. There it was. The real move. The real threat. Jessica wasn't just trying to hurt me. She was trying to drag me down with her. I exhaled through my nose, tilting my head. You think I care what you say after this? Go ahead. Run your mouth. See how many people believe a liar and a cheater. Her smirk faltered, just a little. I took a slow step forward, watching her shift uncomfortably. You're out of moves, Jess. You lost. So take your little threats, take your suitcase, and get the hell out. Her face twisted in rage. She let out a sharp, frustrated breath, then spun on her heel and stomped outside. But before she left, she threw one last parting shot over her shoulder. Have fun being alone, Alex. You'll never find someone better than me. I didn't hesitate. I already have. She stopped mid-step, her whole body going stiff. For the first time all night, Jessica looked genuinely hurt. She opened her mouth, then closed it, her fingers tightening around the suitcase handle. Without saying another word, she was gone. The door slammed shut behind her, and silence filled the house, heavy and thick, like the walls themselves were exhaling after years of suffocation. She was gone. I stood there for a long time, hands still clenched, heart still hammering in my chest. My body expected another fight, another manipulative lie, another attempt to claw her way back inside. But there was nothing. No more sharp heels stomping across the floor. No more fake laughter echoing through the hallways. No more whispered phone calls in the dead of night. Just nothing. I let out a slow breath. Then a short, sharp laugh burst out of me, ripping through the silence before I even realized it. For the first time in years, I wasn't trapped in some twisted mental chess game. I wasn't questioning myself, wasn't being gaslit into believing I was the problem. For the first time in years, I was free. I walked to the window and pulled the curtain aside, just in time to see Jessica standing by the curb, furiously typing on her phone, texting him, no doubt. I watched her for a few seconds, waiting to see if she'd look back, if she'd give one last desperate glance at the house she thought she owned. She didn't. Instead, a sleek black car pulled up, too nice for Stacy's boyfriend, too fast for someone who had just been exposed. She yanked the door open and slid inside without hesitation. And just like that, she was gone. I let the curtain fall back into place, exhaling slowly. I should have felt broken. I should have felt shattered. But instead, all I felt was lighter. The moment her car disappeared down the street, the weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying finally lifted. No more watching my back. No more walking on eggshells. No more wondering if the woman who had slept beside me was really mine. She was gone. I turned away from the window and scanned the house. The living room, where we had argued. The couch, where she had lied through her teeth. The doorway, where I had finally thrown her out. For 6 years, this had been our home, but tonight, it felt like mine. For the first time, I ran a hand through my hair, the adrenaline still buzzing through my veins, my heart pounding, my mind racing. But underneath it all was something new. Relief. I grabbed my keys. I didn't know where I was going, but I wasn't about to sit here and let Jessica's ghost linger in the walls. I needed air. Movement. Freedom. I stepped outside, breathing in the cold night air, feeling it sting my lungs in the best possible way. The sky stretched above me, endless and wide, full of possibility. A future I hadn't allowed myself to imagine until now. As I walked down the porch steps, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out, half expecting one last desperate message from Jessica, some final attempt to drag me back into her web of manipulation. But it wasn't her. It was a name I hadn't seen in a long time. CLA. I stared at the screen, heartbeat quickening for an entirely different reason. Claire. Someone I had never stopped thinking about. Someone who had seen the way Jessica treated me before I had even realized it myself. Someone who had warned me. I swiped open the message. "Hey, I heard what happened. Just wanted to check in." I stared at the words for a long moment, a slow smirk creeping onto my face. I typed back, "I'm good. Actually, really good." I paused, then added, "I'm glowing. You deserve better, Alex." I let out a breath, shaking my head, the last remnants of Jessica's poison draining out of me. Yeah, I did. And for the first time in years, I was finally ready for it.